The silver laundry tag is digging into my palm when Grant Sloan tells me the $6 million bellwether renewal does not justify my bonus. His voice is calm enough to use in an elevator. You protected existing revenue, he says. You didn't create new business. Behind him, the conference room screen shows the signing photo we took 20 minutes ago. Grant is centered beneath the Halcyon Linen Services logo. I'm still in the picture, but my name is gone from the caption. I read the bonus letter twice. The amount remains 0. Send me the final decision in writing, I say. 47 minutes later, I'm sitting in my car with my resignation receipt on the passenger seat when Louise texts me from the celebration upstairs. Bellwether just arrived. A second message appears. Evelyn walked past Grant and asked where you went. I close my hand around the tag and wonder which version of my disappearance Grant is telling them. 11 months earlier, that same piece of aluminum was wired to a laundry cart stuck sideways in the service corridor beneath Bellwether Central Hospital. The cart was 6 feet tall, wrapped in blue canvas, and filled with fitted sheets nobody upstairs had ordered. A respiratory technician was trying to maneuver a smaller cart of oxygen cylinders around it, while a Halcyon route driver named Curtis used language creative enough to qualify as continuing education. I stood with my back against the concrete wall, holding a tablet and staying out of the way. Curtis finally yanked the large cart straight. There, problem solved. Except they needed isolation gowns, I said. They always need something. The wire holding the cart's tag had snapped. I picked the tag off the floor. Bellwether 47. Curtis looked at it, then at me. You collecting souvenirs now? I'm trying to understand why a truck scheduled from the hospital's census delivered 48 bundles of sheets to a unit that has 24 beds. Ask the computer. I did. The computer said you stole 6 carts last month. That got his attention. He stopped pushing. Curtis was in his 50s, with a gray mustache, heavy work boots, and the watchful expression of a man accustomed to being blamed by people wearing cleaner clothes. The computer said what? 6 carts assigned to this building never returned to the plant. That's why Halcyon charged Bellwether for losses. I returned every cart. I know. He studied me for a moment. You're the account lady, Mara Vance. I know who you are. You send emails at 6 in the morning. I wake up angry. His mouth twitched. The problem had looked simple from Halcyon's office. Bellwether Health was entering the last year of a 7-year linen contract, and its 5 hospitals were ordering above their forecast. Halcyon's reports showed elevated consumption, lost carts, and unauthorized rush deliveries. Grant's position was that Bellwether had poor internal controls. Bellwether's position was that Halcyon had poor service and excellent invoices. Both were true, often enough to keep everyone furious. The missing carts were less mysterious. Bellwether sent patient census numbers every afternoon. Halcyon's routing software froze delivery quantities at noon. When a unit changed its forecast after noon, dispatch created a manual replacement order, but the original order stayed attached to the cart's barcode. Curtis would bring back the rejected cart, and the plant would scan it under the replacement order. The original cart remained missing in the system while physically sitting 10 feet from the scanner. You tell Grant? Curtis asked. I told Systems. Did Systems tell Grant? They scheduled a meeting. Curtis laughed so hard he coughed. The respiratory technician squeezed past us. She pointed at cart 47. Can someone get that thing out of here before a night shift? Curtis reached for it. Wait. I looked through the plastic pocket holding the load sheet. This says Tower 3. We're in Tower 1, he said. Why is it here? Because they'd changed the dock assignment again. Nobody had told Halcyon Bellwether's receiving team had moved surgical deliveries to the East Dock during construction, then moved them back on weekends because the East Freight elevator shut down for maintenance. The instructions existed in 3 emails, 2 break room printouts, and the memory of a materials coordinator named Joanne, who worked Tuesdays through Saturdays. I put the silver tag in my blazer pocket. Curtis nodded at it. Still stealing that? Evidence. Souvenir sounds less prosecutable. Upstairs, Bellwether's materials director was waiting for me with 3 binders, a yellow legal pad, and the kind of politeness that meant the relationship was already in danger. Evelyn Shaw attended by video from another hospital. She was Bellwether's chief operating officer and had a voice that could make "good morning" sound like the first question in a deposition. Grant joined 9 minutes late. He filled the screen from his office, handsome and slightly overlit, wearing a charcoal suit while the rest of us looked like we had been working. "Let me start by saying Halcyon values this partnership," he said. Joanne, sitting beside me, made one small mark on her legal pad. Grant continued, "We've completed an extensive internal analysis, and the data indicates the service disruptions are being driven largely by unreported census variation and asset loss within Bellwether facilities." Joanne made another mark. I had been at Halcyon long enough to recognize the early stage of a contract funeral. First, both sides brought binders. Then senior people used the word partnership while assigning blame. Eventually, someone said the problems were systemic, which meant everybody wanted the other side to pay for them. Evelyn listened until Grant finished. "Mr. Sloan," she said, "do you know how many operating rooms at Central began yesterday without their full par level?" Grant glanced toward his second monitor. I answered, 7. He looked at me. Evelyn said, "And how many carts did Halcyon report missing from Central last month?" 6, I said. "Where are they?" "At Halcyon's South Plant. They were returned under replacement order numbers." Grant's face changed by half an inch. That was a lot for Grant. "This is the first I'm hearing of that conclusion," he said. "It was confirmed this morning." "By whom?" "Curtis Bell, dispatch, and the receiving scan log." Joanne slid a copy of the log toward me. She had already printed it. Grant recovered quickly. That was one of the unsettling things about him. His pride could be injured, but his thinking rarely stopped. "Then we've identified a coding issue that should reduce some of the noise around loss rates. That's constructive." Evelyn leaned closer to her camera. "A coding issue you billed us $14,000 for. I'll have finance review the charges. You'll reverse them. We'll review and reconcile any verified discrepancies." Joanne made a third mark. "After the meeting, Grant called me before I reached the elevator. What the hell was that? The hallway smelled like coffee and industrial disinfectant. Through a window in the door behind me, I could see Joanne stacking her binders." That was the answer to Evelyn's question. "You contradicted me in front of the client." "The scan log contradicted you. I just had the faster microphone." "Mara." He used my name when he wanted me to understand that his patience was a business resource I was consuming. I pressed the elevator button. "We need to reverse the fees." "That isn't the point. It's currently Bellwether's point. The point is that you don't introduce unvetted findings in an executive meeting. You send them up first." "I sent systems the discrepancy last week." "You sent them a question, and they scheduled a meeting for next month." The elevator doors opened. Grant was quiet for 2 seconds. "Get me the documentation by 3, he said. "I'll frame the correction." There it was, his talent. Grant could step onto a patch of collapsing ground and, before anyone else moved, sell himself as the engineer. "I'll copy you when I send Bellwether the reconciliation," I said. "No, send it to me." Evelyn asked for a written response today, and I am giving you the process for providing one. I watched the floor numbers change. "I'll send you a draft at 2. He exhaled through his nose. "Good." At 2, he returned my draft with most of the nouns removed. The 6 carts became certain assets. The duplicate order numbers became process inconsistencies. The $14,000 became charges under review. I restored the nouns and sent both versions to him. At 2:46, he called. "You're being difficult." "I'm being specific. Specificity without judgment is how account managers create liability. Ambiguity is how we create invoices." He went silent. I looked at the silver tag lying beside my keyboard. Curtis had been right. It did look like a souvenir. Scratched aluminum, blunt corners, blue paint caught around the stamped number. Grant said, Reverse the 14,000. Do not admit a broader failure until we know the scope. That was a reasonable boundary which irritated me more than if he had simply ordered me to lie. Agreed. And Mara? Yes? Next time, give me the chance to know what you know before the client does. After work, I drove to Dana's upholstery shop with 2 cartons of Thai food and the tag still in my pocket. Vance Needle occupied a narrow brick storefront between a locksmith and a place that repaired restaurant equipment. The front window displayed a green velvet armchair Dana had rescued from a hotel liquidation. She had angled it beneath a brass lamp so it looked less like furniture and more like a person waiting to hear a confession. Dana was in the back pulling staples from a dining chair. Her dark hair was bundled on top of her head with a pencil through it. We were only 3 years apart, but she had been born with the authority of somebody's favorite aunt. "You're late," she said. "I brought curry." "You're forgiven in several major religions." I set the cartons on her work table, avoiding coils of trim and a jar full of upholstery tacks. Dana nodded at the shape in my pocket. "What's that?" I put the tag beside the food. "Bellwether 47, she read. "Did you steal hospital property?" It was on the floor. That's what people say when they steal things from hospitals. I told her about the carts and the billing error while she divided noodles into 2 chipped bowls. Dana listened without interrupting, which usually meant she was preparing one precise insult. "So Grant charged them for losing things he lost," she said. "The company charged them. Grant defended the report." "Ah, a collaborative mistake." He approved the reversal. "After you cornered him on a video call." "I didn't corner him. You gave him facts in a room with witnesses. That's a corner." She handed me a bowl, then pulled an envelope from beneath a fabric catalog. The return address belonged to her landlord. My appetite tightened. Dana sat across from me. "He'll renew for 3 years if I personally guarantee the lease and pay 2 months up front." "How much?" She told me. "That's not terrible," I said too quickly. "It's not good." "We can cover it." She looked at me. "You can cover it." I said we. "You already guaranteed the equipment note, which you've paid every month." "That's not the point." "It's exactly the point." Dana pushed her bowl away. "You don't get to turn my shop into another account you rescue. And you don't get to turn dinner into a pride contest when you have a lease deadline." She looked toward the front room. The green chair glowed under its lamp. 2 years earlier, Dana's business partner had emptied their operating account 3 days before payroll. Dana had kept the shop open, paid every customer back, and developed a physical aversion to the phrase, temporary help. I understood it because I had my own aversion to watching someone I loved get punished for trusting the wrong person. "I'll repay you," she said. "I know. You always say that like it makes helping free." I tucked the landlord's letter into my bag. "It makes it a loan." "No, the paperwork makes it a loan. Your face makes it a hostage situation." I laughed despite myself. Dana picked up the silver tag and turned it under the work light. "What are you doing with this?" "I don't know." She threaded a short piece of blue upholstery cord through the hole. "Now it's evidence with a handle." The next morning, Grant called me into his office. He'd already reversed Bellwether's fees. He'd also mapped the duplicate order problem across all 5 hospitals, estimated our exposure, and arranged for a temporary scan correction before systems held its first meeting. He moved fast when the stakes became real. That was why dismissing him as a fraud would have been easy and wrong. He stood at the window with his sleeves rolled up, studying a spreadsheet. "Bellwether's renewal is in 11 months, he said. "I'm aware. They've hired an outside sourcing firm." That was new. Grant turned his monitor toward me. On it was a formal notice from Evelyn Shaw requesting service records, pricing schedules, exception reports, and transition requirements. At the bottom, one sentence had been bolded. "Bellwether Health will evaluate alternate vendors." Grant tapped the screen. "This account is $6 million a year, Mara. 6.2. Not if they leave." He sat down and looked at me with an expression I had never seen from him before. Not panic, Grant was too disciplined for panic. This was calculation under pressure. "You found the first crack," he said. "Now I need you to tell me how far it runs." I felt the tag's blue cord against my fingers inside my pocket. "What happens if the answer is all the way through?" Grant gave me a small, humorless smile. "Then we become indispensable before they finish measuring it." "Indispensable to whom?" I asked. Grant leaned back. It was a small question, but he heard the trap in it. If Bellwether became dependent on one polished executive, we had learned nothing. If Halcyon became useful at every working level, route drivers to operating room managers, then replacing us would become expensive for reasons a sourcing firm could calculate. "To the system," he said. I nodded. "Then I need access to the people who actually touch it." "You have access." "I have scheduled access to managers. I need dispatch, wash floor supervisors, route drivers, receiving staff, nursing operations, infection control, finance, and whoever keeps changing the dock schedule." "Joanne. Joanne knows the schedule. She isn't the one changing it." Grant rubbed the side of his jaw. "How many meetings?" "One meeting every Thursday, 90 minutes, 8 weeks. With all those people? Rotating. Nobody will come. They will if we stop calling it a meeting." He gave me a suspicious look. "What are you calling it?" "A shortage table." "That sounds like we're admitting shortages." "We are admitting shortages." There were 7 operating rooms below par. "You have an unusual instinct for marketing. You hired me after I titled a corrective action plan, Why Your Towels Smell Like French Fries. That hotel renewed. They fixed the exhaust vent." Grant pointed at the door. "Build your shortage table." The first Thursday, 11 people came and 6 of them were angry before they sat down. Luis Ortega arrived with 2 laptops, a package of peanut butter crackers, and the expression of a man who had been asked to explain gravity to people determined to float. He was Halcyon's route analyst, though his job included anything involving a spreadsheet that made someone else uncomfortable. Curtis came directly from his route in a navy work shirt. Joanne brought 3 binders. Bellwether sent a surgical materials manager, an infection control specialist, and a finance analyst named Priya Desai, who could detect a weak assumption at conversational speed. Halcyon's South Plant manager sent her wash floor supervisor, Tasha Reed, after informing me that Tasha had no client-facing function. Tasha took the chair beside Evelyn. Grant joined for the first 15 minutes and gave a careful speech about shared outcomes. When he left, Tasha watched the door close. "Can we talk normal now?" Evelyn folded her hands. "Please." I placed Cart 47's silver tag in the middle of the table. This was attached to 48 bundles of fitted sheets delivered to the wrong tower. I want to follow it backward from the hospital floor to the clean side of Halcyon's plant. Every handoff, every scan, every assumption. Priya looked at the tag. "Is there a reason we're using an object instead of the reports we requested?" "The reports say this cart was stolen." Curtis raised his hand. "By me, apparently. That earned the first laugh of the morning. It was short and unwilling, but it changed the room. We covered a whiteboard with the route of Cart 47. Bellwether forecast its need based on a morning census. Halcyon converted that number using par levels that had not been updated since 2 surgical units merged. The South Plant built orders at noon. Bellwether revised them at 3. Dispatch created replacements after 5. Curtis loaded both because the canceled order remained on his manifest. At the hospital, receiving redirected 1 cart during construction. On return, Halcyon scanned it against the replacement number. No single mistake was large. They had simply arranged themselves into an expensive little parade. At the second shortage table, Tasha brought photographs of staging lanes at the plant. At the third, Joanne brought 3 months of elevator shutdown notices. Luis layered both against delivery times and found that supposed linen overuse peaked when carts spent more than 40 minutes waiting for freight elevators. "We have been billing you for impatience," he told Priya. "Can we get a credit for emotional damages?" she asked. "I can offer a color-coded chart." Tempting. By the fifth week, Bellwether's outside sourcing firm had received bids from 3 competitors. One came in 9% below us. Grant reacted the way he reacted to most threats. He built a cleaner spreadsheet. He reduced projected cart losses, consolidated 2 weekend routes, and found a chemical supplier rebate that let us lower pricing without destroying the margin. When he presented the model to me, I checked it twice. "This is good," I said. His eyebrow rose. "You sound disappointed." "I'm adjusting to the experience. You see, growth." Then I found the line labeled account efficiency. "You eliminated my on-site days. Reduced, not eliminated, from 3 days a week to 2 days a month. Your shortage table is identifying process solutions. Once those are implemented, the account shouldn't require a highly paid person standing in a basement counting carts." "That isn't what I do." "I know. That's why I said highly paid." He smiled, and I almost did. Grant could be funny when he wanted something. I closed the spreadsheet. "Bellwether doesn't trust our reports yet. They trust you. That isn't the same thing. It's close enough to renew. And after renewal? After renewal, we deliver what we promised. Who notices when the promise stops matching the loading dock?" He tapped the spreadsheet. "The system. The system called Curtis a thief. The system is being corrected by people you're taking out of the price." Grant's smile disappeared. 9%, Mara. That is the gap. Their sourcing firm doesn't award points because you know which freight elevator smells like burnt coffee. Oil. What? The East Freight elevator smells like burnt oil. Thank you for strengthening my argument. I took his model back to Luis. We found enough savings to restore 1 on-site day a week by changing emergency delivery triggers and staggering Monday inventory. Tasha added a proposal to separate isolation gowns by usage volatility instead of stocking every hospital equally. Curtis suggested sealing replacement order paperwork in red sleeves so receiving could identify it without opening the cart. Grant approved all 3 changes. Then he presented them to the executive team as his service stabilization model. Luis sent me a screenshot of the presentation while I was eating soup at Dana's shop. "Did we invent a director?" I typed back. "Apparently, he invented us first." Dana looked up from the settee she was working on. "Work husband?" Luis would object to the hours. "Work nemesis?" "Also, Luis." She stretched a strip of fabric along the cushion. Business had improved since she signed the new lease, but only because she had taken a restoration contract from a downtown hotel. Every flat surface in the shop held tassels, foam samples, or antique chair parts. My guarantee sat in a file at the bank, silent and heavy. "Your landlord cashed the deposit," I said. "I saw, so you can stop checking the account every 20 minutes. I check every hour. I'm not unwell." I put down my spoon. "You could say thank you." "I did say thank you." "You said, 'This changes nothing.'" "It changed the amount I owe you. That's something." Dana pushed a tack into place with her thumb. "You know what Grant and my old partner have in common?" Please don't say cheekbones. They both figured out that reliable women will clean up a mess before asking who gets credit. I reached for the silver tag on the table. I had started fastening the shortage table minutes with its blue cord every Friday. The stack was now thick enough that the cord barely reached through the punched corners. "Grant's not stealing money," I said. I didn't say he was. "He's actually good at his job." "That makes it better?" "It makes it more complicated. For you, everything gets more complicated the moment a difficult person is competent." That feels like an attack on my values. It is. At the next shortage table, Evelyn asked Grant whether Halcyon would commit its operational structure to the renewal. He answered without glancing at me. "Absolutely. The entire proposal is built around continuity." We were meeting at Bellwether North, where the conference room was so cold Joanne had brought a cardigan and a second cardigan in case someone else had failed to prepare. Rain striped the windows. Evelyn turned to me. "What does continuity mean?" Grant crossed one ankle over his knee. It means the process isn't dependent on any single individual. That's not what I asked. I could feel him waiting. It means Bellwether knows who owns each decision, I said. Not just which department, which role. It means if Halcyon changes the people in those roles, you receive notice before the transition instead of discovering it after service slips. Priya looked up from the draft agreement. Can we write that? Grant replied first. We can define a governance structure. With designated operational leads, Evelyn asked. That level of specificity can limit flexibility. Evelyn's gaze stayed on him. Flexibility for whom? There it was again. Grant smiled. Let's have council draft language that protects continuity without interfering with ordinary staffing decisions. We did not have an attorney descend with perfect wording. We had 6 days of track changes, 2 people from procurement, Grant objecting to every use of the word approval, and Priya replacing approval with written acknowledgement plus a review right. The final clause required Halcyon to identify the renewal's commercial and operational leads, notify Bellwether of substitutions, disclose unresolved service exceptions during transition, and provide personnel with comparable experience. Bellwether could not force me to stay. It could force Halcyon to be honest if I left. Grant accepted the clause after adding language allowing temporary substitutions during emergencies. It was a fair addition. Then he named himself commercial lead and me operational lead. I stared at the draft on my screen. Luis rolled his chair over. Congratulations, you're now contractually inconvenient to replace. That isn't how it works. Let me enjoy this. Grant appeared at the entrance to our cubicle row. Mara, walk with me. He led me downstairs to the plant cafeteria, where the coffee had acquired enough strength to remove paint. He poured 2 cups without asking and handed me one. Evelyn listens to you, he said. She listens to specifics. She listens to you giving specifics. I waited. If we renew Bellwether, the standard retention bonus is $25,000. I had known the range. Hearing the number still did something physical to my breathing. $25,000 would clear Dana's lease guarantee and leave enough for me to replace the transmission in my car before it began choosing its own gears. Grant stirred powdered creamer into his coffee. I can support the full amount, he said, but I need you operating as part of the commercial team. I am part of the commercial team. You are when you agree with it. You want me to stop correcting you in front of Bellwether. I want disagreements settled inside Halcyon. What if Bellwether asks a direct question? You answer it with judgment. That word keeps doing a lot of work. So do you. He set down the stirrer. This is me acknowledging that. Grant rarely offered praise unless he had inspected it for leverage first. That did not make it false. It just meant there was usually a string attached, and he preferred transparent fishing line. What specifically do you need? I asked. Get Evelyn comfortable with a 6-year term. Help me hold the price floor, and stop treating every operational defect like a test of personal integrity. Some of them are tests of contractual performance. You know what I mean? I do. That was the problem. I did. I took the coffee even though it was terrible. Put the bonus criteria in writing. His expression cooled slightly. You think I won't honor it? I think we'll both remember this conversation differently in 6 months. He gave a brief laugh. Fine. The email arrived that afternoon. Successful execution of the Bellwether renewal at approved margin and term. Continued leadership through transition. Executive discretion based on individual contribution. I read the last sentence 3 times. Then I forwarded it to my personal account along with my latest performance review and the approved role designation. That Friday, Bellwether experienced its first week with no unresolved linen shortage at any of the 5 hospitals. Curtis brought cart 47 into Central's receiving bay at 5:42 in the morning. Its blue canvas had been patched near the bottom, and the replacement order sleeve was bright red against the side. Joanne scanned it. The order matched. The tower matched. Inside were isolation gowns rather than somebody else's fitted sheets. She looked at me. I hate that this feels impressive. Standards are low. Standards are measurable. Curtis locked the cart's brake with his boot. You got my tag? I pulled it from my pocket. The blue cord hung below my fingers. He nodded toward the cart. Could put it back. I think it's doing more work with me. You billing it by the hour? I'm considering a management fee. Curtis laughed and pushed the cart toward the freight elevator. The doors opened almost immediately. Joanne raised both hands as if she had witnessed an act of divine intervention, then caught herself and pointed at the red sleeve. That stays, she said. It's in the proposed procedure. No, I mean that exact color. Procurement wants to make it gray. Why? They said red communicates distress. It is a replacement order. Procurement doesn't enjoy emotional accuracy. I added the color decision to my notes. By the time we entered formal renewal negotiations, the service score had risen from 78% to 96%. Rush charges were down by almost half. Cart losses had fallen so sharply that Priya accused Luis of hiding them in another spreadsheet. I would never, he said. I'd use a separate tab. The lower-priced competitor was still in the process. Evelyn made sure we knew that. She also began asking questions only an incumbent could answer. How fast we could shift gowns during a flu surge, whether the South plant could isolate bellwether inventory during a water quality event, which routes shared drivers on holidays. Grant answered the financial questions. I answered the operational ones. Tasha corrected both of us when we drifted beyond reality. For a while, we were very good together. That made what followed harder to recognize. The first change was small. Grant removed the contributor list from a draft presentation because, he said, the slide was crowded. Then he began referring to the shortage table as his governance initiative. At an internal review, Halcyon's president congratulated him on bringing discipline to Bellwether. Grant accepted the compliment and kept talking. Afterward, I stood outside the conference room while executives moved past me carrying bottled water and printed copies of our work. Grant emerged last. You forgot the names, I said. He adjusted his cuff. What names? Luis, Tasha, Curtis, mine. It was a margin review, Mara, not an awards banquet. The operating model created the margin, and I created space for you to build it. He said it without heat. In his mind, it was probably true. Then his phone vibrated. He checked the message and smiled. Bellwether dropped the competitor, he said. We're the final bidder. I should have felt relief. Instead, I looked through the conference room glass at the first page of his presentation, Bellwether Retention Strategy. Underneath it was one name, Grant Sloan, Commercial Director. I waited until the hallway emptied. You need to fix that slide. Grant looked through the glass at it. The deck has already gone to the president. Then send a correction. Mara, we are negotiating the largest renewal in this company's history. I am not sending senior leadership a correction because your feelings were hurt by a title page. My feelings aren't in the operating model. Exactly. He walked away. I sent Luis and Tasha the final service data with a note thanking them for the work behind it. I copied their managers. I did not mention Grant's slide. It was a small response. Grant noticed it anyway. The next week, my access to the renewal pricing folder changed from editor to viewer. He said finance had tightened controls during final negotiations. Then he began holding 7:30 calls with Bellwether's sourcing firm without inviting me. Evelyn still invited me to the operational sessions, which meant Grant could not remove me completely. Instead, he arrived early and answered questions before they reached me. He was good at those meetings. He remembered details, knew where the cost pressure lived, and could turn an ugly concession into something that sounded mutually disciplined. When Bellwether demanded automatic service credits for every shortage, Grant showed that shortages caused by census changes after the cutoff would expose Halcyon to costs it could not control. He proposed a shared exception category with a shorter response window. Evelyn accepted it. Then she asked how the category would be administered. Grant said, "Through the governance process we developed." "Who administers it?" she asked. He looked at me. "Mara and Priya for the first 90 days, I said. then Bellwether's materials team, and Halcyon's designated account lead. Good, Evelyn said. Put the names in the implementation schedule. After the call, Grant closed the conference room door. You enjoyed that. What? Making her ask for you by name. I didn't make her. You could have said the account team. She asked who. You keep pretending precision is neutral. I shut my notebook. You keep pretending vagueness doesn't benefit you. His face hardened, then smoothed again. I need you focused. Starting Monday, you're taking Arbor Crest and Rosegate. They were two nursing home accounts with repeated billing disputes and service scores in the 60s. Both? You said operational defects are tests of contractual performance. Bellwether is in final negotiations, which is why you'll remain available as needed. There was no clean objection. Account assignments were his decision, and both facilities genuinely needed help. Grant had found a way to punish me using work I could not dismiss as unimportant. At Arbor Crest, the loading dock was a sloped patch of asphalt behind the kitchen, and every delivery arrived smelling faintly of onions. At Rosegate, the linen room key lived in a dented coffee tin at reception because nobody could agree which department owned it. I spent my mornings untangling their shortages and my afternoons answering Bellwether questions between parking lots. Louise started bringing me printouts because several Bellwether folders no longer appeared in my system. You're being slowly disappeared, he said. We were sitting in my car outside Rosegate, eating sandwiches from a gas station. Luis had mustard on his cuff. He assigned me 2 real accounts. He removed your edit rights. Finance may have changed them. Finance thinks you changed them. I looked at him. Luis pulled a folded email from his laptop bag. Grant asked Finance to restrict your pricing access because you were introducing unapproved client commitments. Finance asked me which commitments. What did you say? That unless you promised Evelyn a company helicopter, I hadn't seen any. I took the paper. The email referenced the service credit model and weekend inventory buffer. Both had been approved in meetings Grant attended. Send me the original. I already did. To my personal email. He looked offended. I have learned things working for you. The gas station sandwich sat heavily in my stomach. Don't get yourself involved, I said. That advice is late. I mean it, Luis. So do I. He asked me to revise the forecast narrative. What revision? Luis opened his laptop. In the approved model, reduced rush deliveries accounted for nearly half the projected savings. The revision attributed those savings to route consolidation directed by commercial leadership. It was clever. Route consolidation had contributed, but only after the shortage table corrected inventory triggers. Without that work, consolidating routes would have increased emergency deliveries. He wants the model to look like his pricing strategy saved the account, I said. He wants the model to support his promotion packet. You know about that? His assistant prints in color. I looked through the windshield at Rosegate's service entrance. A Halcyon truck had arrived, and the driver was carrying bundles up the slope because a catering van blocked the dock. Don't change it, I said. I wasn't going to. Save the approved version, the source data, and his request. Luis closed the laptop. You say that like we're preparing for weather. We are. At Dana's shop that night, I found her asleep in the green velvet chair under the brass lamp. A half-finished hotel bench sat on sawhorses in the back. The radio was playing quietly beside 3 empty coffee cups. I touched her shoulder. She opened one eye. If you're a customer, this chair costs $9,000. You paid $600 for it. Story is value. I handed her the takeout bag I had brought. She sat up and studied my face. What did Grant do? Why is that always your first question? Your mouth gets smaller. I told her about the folder access, the account assignments, and Luis's forecast. Dana ate dumplings while I talked. When I finished, she wiped sauce from her thumb. Quit. I don't have another job. You have savings. Some. You have me. I guaranteed your lease. I know. If I lose my income and the shop has a bad month, then I make the payment. With what? Her expression changed. The cruelty of the question arrived after I said it. Dana set down the carton. I'm sorry. No, you're practical. That's what reliable women call fear when they put it in a spreadsheet. I said I'm sorry. And I heard you. She stood and carried the food toward the back. Dana. She stopped. I can't walk out before the renewal, I said. The operational schedule isn't finished. There are open exceptions. If I leave now, Grant will call it proof I couldn't handle the account. So you stay until there's nothing he can use against you? That's the plan. She turned around. There will always be something. The final negotiation lasted 13 hours over 2 days. Bellwether wanted a 6-year term with a termination review after year 3. Grant wanted 6 years firm. Priya wanted a stronger credit schedule. Halcyon wanted protection against energy price spikes. Tasha refused a proposed emergency inventory level because the South plant could not physically segregate that many additional gowns during peak weeks. At 6:30 on the second evening, everyone was tired enough to become honest. Evelyn closed the draft. I am not giving Halcyon 6 guaranteed years based on a service score you maintained for 1 quarter. Grant did not flinch. Then give us 3 years with an automatic 3-year extension if we hold the service thresholds. That rewards you for doing what we pay you to do. It rewards us for committing capital based on a longer relationship. We are not financing your equipment. No. You're asking us to reserve plant capacity your alternate vendor cannot guarantee. He was right, and Evelyn knew it. She looked at me. Can Halcyon hold the emergency levels in this schedule? Tasha's version, yes, not the version procurement added this morning. The sourcing representative frowned. The difference is 8%. The difference is where the inventory sits, I said. If you require every hospital to hold the maximum separately, we'll charge you to store linen that cannot move when another site needs it. Tasha's plan keeps a central reserve at South with 2-hour release triggers. Evelyn turned to Tasha. Can your plant do that? Yes, Tasha said, if dispatch stops using the reserve lane for broken carts. Grant glanced at me. And we can commit to that. We settled on an initial 3-year term with a performance-based 3-year extension. Total first-term value, just over $6 million. After the final red line went out, Grant found me alone in the conference room gathering coffee cups. You held the price floor, he said. We held it. His eyes flicked toward me. Tasha's reserve plan closed the last gap, I added. Yes, it did. For a moment, he looked tired rather than polished. You think credit is a fixed quantity, he said. Like if I receive it, there's less left for you. You removed our names. Senior leadership expects me to own the outcome. Ownership includes mistakes. I took the heat for the duplicate billing. You called it a coding issue and reversed it without exposing the company to a broader claim. That is my job. He picked up 2 empty cups and stacked them. My promotion gives me the authority to fund the system you built, he said. Your bonus pays you for building it. Those things can coexist if you stop forcing every room to choose between us. It was the most honest thing he had said to me. I wanted to believe him because the alternative required action I was not ready to take. The signing took place the following Tuesday. Bellwether sent the agreement electronically, but Grant wanted photographs for the company newsletter. Someone ordered champagne and small cakes with $6 million frosting numerals that looked like green worms. The executive conference room filled with people who had never seen Bellwether's loading dock. I signed as operational lead. Grant signed for commercial. Halcyon's president signed last. While everyone rearranged themselves for photographs, I saw the presentation on the wall. Bellwether Renewal executive sponsor. Grant Sloan. The contributor slide was gone. Grant's assistant placed a sealed envelope beside my nameplate. The silver tag lay beside it, still tied through the latest stack of approved minutes. I had brought the records for the implementation handoff. Inside the envelope was the bonus letter, 0. Grant asked me into the smaller conference room next door. Through the glass, I could see someone opening champagne. "Your bonus isn't justified," he said. He spoke about retained revenue, collective effort, executive discretion. He said my performance during the final phase had raised concerns. I had resisted direction, created confusion about approval authority, and divided the team by emphasizing individual contribution. "Who wrote that?" I asked. I did. At least one name survived. His jaw tightened. He pushed a second document across the table. It was a renewal summary stating that he had assumed direct control after I lost alignment with Bellwether's commercial objectives. It attributed pricing concessions to operational commitments I had made before receiving approval. "You want me to sign this?" "I want the file to reflect a constructive explanation. In exchange, I can authorize a discretionary payment of $7,500. I read the page again. The commitments listed here were approved. Eventually. You were in the meetings. "Mara, take the payment. Lead the transition. Let this be finished." I looked through the glass at the champagne, the worm-shaped cakes, and my own missing name. Then I placed the unsigned summary on top of the $0 letter. "Send me the bonus decision in writing," I said. His expression sharpened. "This is in writing. The final decision with the reason you just gave me." "Where are you going?" "To finish my handoff." He followed me into the hall. "The celebration starts in 40 minutes. "I know." I sent Luis the open exception list and Tasha the final reserve schedule. I copied Joanne and Priya on the service notes they already owned. Then I printed my resignation, signed it, and carried it to Human Resources. Grant reached my desk as I fastened the approved minutes with the blue cord and set the silver tag on top. "You're making an emotional decision," he said. I prepared the handoff before I opened the envelope. That landed, his eyes moved to the records. "Those stay." "They're company copies." "Then why are you holding them?" "I placed them in the Bellwether implementation box." "I'm not." I left the box on my desk, took my coat, and walked out before the champagne was poured. In my car, my hands shook hard enough that I missed the ignition twice. Dana called. I watched her name light the screen and could not answer yet. Then Luis texted, "Bellwether just arrived. Evelyn walked past Grant and asked where you went." A third message appeared while I sat there with the silver tag's shape still pressed into my palm. Grant told her you abandoned the transition. Then seconds later, "She wants to see the notice." I typed, "There isn't one." 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. "I know." Dana called a second time. I answered. "What happened?" she asked. "I quit." The silence on her end was so complete I could hear the shop radio playing behind her. "Okay," she said. "That's all?" "No, I have several speeches, but you sound like you're in a car." "I am." "Is it moving?" "No." "Good. Come here before you convince yourself to go back upstairs." I drove to the shop with my resignation receipt sliding across the passenger seat every time I turned. The silver tag lay in the cup holder. I had picked it off the implementation box at the last second. An instinctive act I had not examined until I was 3 floors below Grant. Dana had locked the front door by the time I arrived. She opened it before I knocked. I handed her the bonus letter. She read it beneath the brass lamp beside the green chair. Her face remained still until she reached the sentence about executive discretion. "0," she said, "apparently." "And he wanted you at the party?" "He wanted me to sign something first." I showed her the renewal summary. Dana read more slowly this time. "Did you make unapproved commitments?" "No." "Can you prove that?" "Yes." "Then why do you look like you robbed the place?" "Because I guaranteed your lease and quit my job 40 minutes later." She put both pages on the chair. "The shop made its payment this month." "That isn't the same as stability." "No, but it's 1 month of it." "I should have lined something up. You should have done whatever lets you sleep without grinding your teeth through the wall." "I don't grind my teeth." "You chewed through a mouth guard. It was poorly made." Dana stepped closer. "Mara, I would rather close this shop myself than have you stay somewhere because you think my furniture is holding you hostage." That is a dramatic description of a lease guarantee. I restore fainting couches. Drama pays my electric bill. My phone vibrated on the work table. Grant had emailed my personal address confirming receipt of my resignation and reminding me that company records were confidential. He requested that I return any Halcyon property immediately. I looked at the silver tag. Dana followed my eyes. He means that? I don't know. Mail him $1. It isn't currency. Neither was your bonus. I laughed once, then started crying so abruptly that it embarrassed both of us. Dana put her arms around me and rested her chin on my hair. She smelled like dust, fabric sizing, and the citrus soap she kept by the industrial sink. I'm still mad at you, she said. For quitting? For asking what I'd make the lease payment with. I'm sorry. I know. I'm still mad. That seems fair. We stood there until my phone vibrated again. This time it was Evelyn. Mara, I have received conflicting information regarding your departure and the status of implementation. Please let me know whether you are willing to participate in a governance review as Bellwether's former designated operational lead. I read the message twice. Dana did not ask what I planned to do. She picked up the Thai menu from the work table and said, I'm ordering the expensive curry. We're financially reckless now. The governance review took place the next morning by video. I joined from Dana's office, which was separated from the workroom by a glass wall and contained a desk covered in trim samples. Dana removed a ceramic leopard from the shelf behind me because she said it undermined my credibility. She left a framed photograph of the green chair. Evelyn and Priya joined from Bellwether. Halcyon's president, Marlene Beck, attended with human resources and finance. Grant sat at the far end of their conference table with a printed contract open in front of him. Marlene began, Mara, I want to be clear that your resignation has been accepted. This discussion is limited to establishing the condition of the Bellwether transition. Understood. Grant's expression did not change. Evelyn said, Were you given notice that Halcyon intended to replace you as operational lead? No. Did you prepare a handoff? Yes. The implementation box on my desk includes the approved schedule, open exception list, service contacts, and renewal minutes. Grant leaned toward the microphone. Those materials were compiled as part of your normal responsibilities. They do not change the fact that you resigned immediately before a client event without discussing transition coverage. I looked at him on the screen. You were standing at my desk when I put them in the box. I saw you gathering files. You told me they had to stay. Evelyn turned to Grant. You were aware she had prepared a handoff. I was aware that documents existed. Priya lowered her eyes. I could not tell whether she was reading or hiding a reaction. Marlene asked, Mara, why was the handoff prepared before you received the bonus decision? Because my access had been restricted, my account load changed, and finance had been asked to revise the renewal narrative. I thought I might be removed after signing. Grant sat straighter. That is an interpretation. It was a possibility. I prepared for it. Finance's representative asked which narrative I meant. I gave him the file name and the date Luis had received the revision request. Grant began explaining route consolidation savings. Marlene stopped him. We'll review the source file separately. Evelyn held up the celebration presentation. This says all service exceptions were resolved before signing. The handoff lists 3 open items. They were administrative, Grant said. They did not affect the renewal decision. One involved finalizing the South Plant's emergency reserve lane. One involved Bellwether's holiday driver sharing schedule. The third was a sterilization turnaround measure that needed 2 more weeks of data. None threatened the contract. All required somebody to own them. They affect implementation, I said. Evelyn tapped the page, which is why we required disclosure. Grant's skill did not desert him. He acknowledged that the transition notice should have gone out sooner, proposed Tasha as temporary operational lead, and offered a 48-hour schedule for closing the exceptions. Each response was practical. Each arrived only after someone forced the underlying fact into the room. Bellwether did not threaten to cancel. Evelyn was more disciplined than that. She invoked the governance clause. The ceremonial rollout was paused. Regular service continued. Halcyon had 5 business days to provide a qualified transition team, reconcile the open exceptions, and explain the leadership change in writing. Bellwether reserved its right to review the performance-based extension if the transition failed. $6 million remained signed. The next 3 years had become less comfortable. After the meeting, Luis showed up at the shop. Dana let him in and pointed toward the back without asking who he was. He still wore his Halcyon badge. "You left," he said. "I resigned. You left me in a room with 4 executives and a cake shaped like a dollar sign. I'm sorry about the cake. I told you he was disappearing you. I know. And then you disappeared." His anger landed because it was earned. I had protected his files and his name, but I had not trusted him with my decision. I didn't know I was resigning until he handed me the letter. "You knew it was possible." "Yes, you could have told me that. I didn't want to put you in the middle." Luis stared at me. I was already in the middle. "I sent you the forecast request while eating a gas station sandwich." Dana passed behind him carrying a wooden chair frame. "He has a point." "Thank you," Luis said. "You're welcome." I apologized without explaining again. Eventually, he sat down. "Finance pulled the revision history," he said. "Grant changed the savings narrative after the margin approval. He also moved the service credits into a category labeled Account Manager Concessions. That makes them look like my decisions." Finance noticed. "Because you told them?" "Because Grant told them to evaluate your judgment. He created the request that led them back to his edits." That was Grant's pattern reduced to one clean circle. He had been competent enough to build the model and arrogant enough to believe he could rearrange its history without anyone examining the formulas. "Are you in trouble?" I asked. "Probably." I refused to validate his version. "I'm sorry. Stop apologizing like it's a coupon." 5 days later, Halcyon completed its review. The company did not send me a triumphant report. Marlene called and spoke with the careful restraint of someone handling several problems at once. The full bonus criteria had been met before my resignation. Grant's discretionary denial had not followed Halcyon's documented retention process. Finance had also confirmed that approved service concessions and projected savings were reclassified after signing. Marlene offered to reinstate me, pay the bonus, and place Bellwether under a different reporting structure. "No," I said. She paused. "May I ask which part?" "The reinstatement. We can address your reporting concerns. I don't trust the company's process enough to return as an employee." "That is fair." It surprised me that she said it. "We still need transition leadership," she continued. "Bellwether has approved Tasha as interim lead, but she can't leave the plant 3 days a week." Evelyn suggested a limited consulting arrangement. "Suggested me?" "Required experience comparable to yours. You're the simplest candidate." "Simple is expensive." Marlene laughed quietly. "I assumed it might be." We negotiated for 2 days. I did not have a perfect lawyer waiting beside me. I had an accountant Dana used for the shop, a sample consulting agreement from a former colleague, and Priya correcting my mistaken belief that Bellwether could dictate my rate. The final deal covered 90 days. My fee included the $25,000 bonus Halcyon had withheld, payment for each on-site day, and a cancellation provision if Halcyon ended the transition early. The agreement named the work Implementation of the Vance Service Governance Model, developed with Tasha Reed, Luis Ortega, Curtis Bell, Joanne Mercer, and the Bellwether Materials team. I would report to Marlene for contract administration and Evelyn for deliverables. Grant would have no supervisory role. He kept his job. He lost Bellwether and the regional vice president promotion. Halcyon assigned him to a margin recovery initiative that required monthly presentations to Marlene's executive team. The first slide in the new Bellwether deck listed every contributor. His name appeared fourth. My first morning back at Central, Grant was leaving a meeting as I arrived. He stopped beside me in the hallway. "You got what you wanted," he said. "No." His face tightened. "Your bonus, your name, your independence. I wanted you to keep your word." He looked toward the conference room. "You think the company chose you. I think the client enforced the agreement. That agreement exists because I approved it, and because Evelyn didn't trust us without it. He absorbed that. Grant was too intelligent not to." "I saved the margin," he said. "You did." The answer unsettled him more than an argument. "So did I added. He gave one short nod and walked away. The transition took all 90 days. Tasha became Bellwether's permanent operational lead with 2 dedicated on-site coordinators. Luis's forecast remained the approved version. Curtis helped train dispatch on the red replacement sleeves and negotiated a route schedule that stopped treating traffic as a moral failure. Dana repaid the lease deposit 6 months early. She did it without warning, then presented me with the bank confirmation tucked beneath the cushion of the green chair. Bellwether offered me a permanent role building supplier governance systems across its regional network. I accepted after negotiating enough time to keep one consulting client of my own. Before dawn on my last transition day, I stood in Central's receiving bay with Tasha and Joanne. Cart 47 rolled off Curtis's truck, its blue canvas newly patched and its red sleeve bright beneath the fluorescent lights. Joanne scanned it. "Correct tower," she said. Tasha checked the load sheet. "Correct gowns." Curtis locked the brake, almost suspicious. I took the old silver tag from my pocket. Dana's blue cord was frayed at one end. The new exception ledger sat on the receiving desk, its first page dated and blank. I threaded the cord through the punched corner and tied the tag to it. Tasha touched the stamp number. "You sure you want to leave this?" "It's yours now." She opened the ledger and wrote the first line. Cart 47 cleared receiving at 5:42 a.m. Then she signed her name beneath it.